We're back with another Duskmourn Precon Powerup, this time taking a look at the Endless Punishment Precon with Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls as our commander. Using the Precon as a starting point, we will build off what the deck already thrives in to make a more consistent and oppressive group slug deck. There is so much value with this Rakdos commander, so if you enjoy the video, be sure to give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. A list of all the added upgrades along with a full deck list is in the comment section below. Valgavoth is a 4/4 flying demon with ward paid to life. It reads, whenever an opponent loses life for the first time on each of their turns, we get to draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on him. Card draw in the command zone is always advantageous no matter what the color identity is, and we plan to fully take advantage of that draw with a deck that shows no mercy. The game plan is to consistently tax our opponents in the form of life loss and damage for whatever plays they make. No matter if they're drawing cards, casting spells, or even playing lands, we have a way to make sure we are always getting the trigger from Valgavoth to refill our hand while turning him into a huge beater to close out the game. On screen are the cards I recommend to take out of the deck as they are not as consistent in the life loss plan or too out of theme. It pains me to remove fun cards like Karavek the Merciless and Braid's Arisen Nightmare, but we have more low to the ground cards that will amass huge benefits for us. We want to assemble a board with a wide variety of damage and life loss effects that will stack up to be too daunting for our opponents. With that being said, let's get the damage rolling with the upgrades. To start off our consistent damage enablers, let's look at the upkeep. Sulfuric Vortex, Roiling Vortex, and Shandra Awakened Inferno are perfect cards to do small increments of damage that in turn reward us with card draw for our commander. Both Vortexes even prevent our opponents from trying to gain some cowardly life, while Shandra is also a mini board wipe or spot removal for creatures. These are great cards to get the ball rolling for our deck to draw into even more sluggish cards. So it only makes sense that when our opponents move to draw step, they should also be losing life there too with the newly printed Razorkin Needlehead. The deck already has ways to punish draw, but there is always room for more, and this being a low cost 2-drop will make the cut any day. Plus, it's much less expensive than the flashy Orcish Bowmasters, but if you have one on hand, feel free to throw him in the deck too. Now that our opponents are in their main phase, we cannot let up. If they are going to cast spells, they are going to pay for them thanks to Spell Shock, Rugged Smothering, and Heartborn Battler. The Battler will only deal 2 damage when a second spell is cast, but Spell Shock and the Smothering Rug will dish out damage every time a player casts a spell. These completely shut off any Spellslinger deck or just simply ones that are trying to run off multiple spells. They warp the entire game around them and in turn will grab all the heat away from our commander since they are so disruptive. But we're not there because no one is safe to do anything, and that includes the use of lands. Zozu the Punisher will shock anyone for 2 damage whenever a land enters their battlefield, while Mana Barbs will deal 1 damage to a land's controller every time they are tapped to produce the one thing they were made for. These cards ensure that we cover every aspect of the game, squeezing out as much damage as possible as we never want to miss a draw trigger with our commander. And if our opponents on the off chance are able to avoid all our damage enablers, we have Pestilence that lets us pay 1 black mana to deal 1 damage to all players and creatures. With our commander out, this enchantment essentially lets us pay 1 black mana to draw a card, and we can do that 3 times a turn rotation. Last up, we have a truly underappreciated hero that performs well beyond expectations, and that card is Karakazar, the Eye of Tyrant. This card is good for multiple reasons. It can tap down a blocker so our commander can go in for a huge hit, it deters away big creatures from swinging at us, and then when our opponents swing at each other, they lose a life and draw a card, pumping our commander. This creature is vastly underrated in this deck and dubs the honor of our hidden hero. The next section I want to cover are a few protection pieces. This deck heavily relies on our commander to continuously refill our hand, so it's only natural we include Swiftfoot Boots and Malakir Rebirth. Both cards will make sure our opponents jump through hoops before they're able to disturb Valgavoth. But to deter swings away, I see no reason not to add No Mercy. This enchantment destroys all creatures that deal damage to us, letting us feel extra confident moving to combat and to swing our big commander. And if that isn't enough, then we also added some board wipes in the form of Chain Reaction and Shandra's Ignition. Chain Reaction is a budget version of Blasphemous Act, dealing damage to each creature based on the number of creatures on board, while Chandra's Ignition is both a one-sided board wipe and even a win con towards the end of the game. If our commander is large enough from all the counters, when we cast Chandra's Ignition, whatever creature we choose, which will be Valgavoth, It deals damage to each other creature and each opponent based on its power. This card is amazing and fits perfectly on theme for this punishing deck. So let's head to the finish line with a few utility cards to truly round out the deck. Now that Dockside is banned, it's time to give some limelight to Descent into Avernus. While nowhere near as powerful, it's still a fun card that provides everyone with treasure and damage that builds the longer it stays on the field. It's another one of those cards that will take the focus away from our commander, as it can straight up start to eliminate people if not dealt with. Then we have Exquisite Blood. This enchantment will provide us with much needed life gain when our opponents are dealt damage. It will propel us ahead of everyone else as their life totals dwindle and ours flourish. Valakut Awakening is another perfect card for the deck. While it is a generic red staple, since we will be drawing a ton from our commander, we can use the instant to put any useless cards from the bottom of our deck and replace them with more damage doers. And to finish off the video, we saved the Accolade for last. It's an amazing creature that can act as a pseudo commander for this deck, and it is Obnixila's Captive Kingpin. Whenever an opponent is dealt exactly 1 damage, we get to exile the top card of our library and put a counter on him. We get to play the exile cards until our next end step. This is an amazing creature that basically has our commander's same effect, or pretty close to it. We have tons of ways to deal only 1 damage, and that can get us some heavy card advantage. This deck was super fun to tinker with and even more fun to play against. Let me know down in the comment section what cards you've added to your Endless Punishment Precon and ones you want to pick up. While you're headed that way, consider supporting the channel by using our TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing these cards or future ones from the site.